Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Josh Walker. I'm a producer and engineer at 150 Music Studios in Houston, Texas. This is the Songwriter Snack Time show where we sit down with artists and talk about the process of songwriting and the business of being an artist. If you love music, you're in the right place. Today we sit down with Emma Bordelon. Emma is a songwriter from Galveston, Texas. She is an amazing songwriter and has a great voice. Her songs are honest and raw and authentic, and I think that'll really come across in our interview and the performance at the end. She has released a full album called The Great Healing Experiment earlier this year, and we worked together on that. And then she's also released just recently 2 more singles, one an acoustic version of one of the songs of the fully produced album, and then another one is a new song called Mixed Emotions. So we would love for you to check her music out on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you stream music from. I think Emma is at the beginning stages of an awesome career, so it was my pleasure to sit down with her and have a conversation and talk about her process for writing songs and what it's like to be an artist in today's changing music business. Although this show is primarily audio and is meant to be and exist as a podcast, we're also capturing this on video, so for Facebook or for YouTube. But on any of the devices that you listen to podcasts, I do have a specific ask today. If you'll go onto your app and leave us a star rating, leave us a review. I'd love to continue doing this show. This is episode 4. By you leaving a review for us and leaving us a rating, it really helps with the ranking on and helps us be found as a podcast. So I really appreciate you. That's my specific ask for today. I hope you guys are doing well. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's jump into the interview with Emma Bordelon.
I was really attracted to your songs because of your voice. Like, I thought your voice, when you sent over those demos, like, hey, listen to these songs, I was blown away. I was like, man, she can really sing. Like, so you just feel more confident. Like, you have a background of singing, choir, school, right?
Yeah. Not too much, actually, like in school, other than college. I in like high school and middle school. Mm-hmm. Middle school, I was only in choir for 1 year. High school, I was only in choir for 1 year. I was in every choir in high school, only for that 1 year. And the directors were mad at me. They were like, where have you been? I sang everywhere else, basically, just not in school. Mostly church, I think.
For those people that don't know, like, Emma and I worked on a project together. When you released that project on Facebook, I saw you said, special thanks to my parents, J Mamaw and Flight Software. Those are funny tag names. For supporting your interest in music and making you learn guitar when you were 6, right?
Yeah.
So take me back to like young Emma. Like, they made you like take lessons?
So my mom, when she was young, she had a really great ear for music. Really great. My great aunt was a singer, very similar to me in a lot of ways. When my mom was very little, she like noticed that she would just hear things like in church or something, hear a hymn, and then come home and like play it on the piano. Like
she could just
5 years old or something. My great aunt was like, Jackie, you need to like put her in piano lessons or something. And they just never did. Like, they never really let her learn anything, and she was always really sad about that. And so when me and my brother were little, she was like, you're both going to pick an instrument, and you're going to play it until, I don't know, till you could probably pick up a piece of music and play it right there. And then if you don't want to do it after that, you don't have to. My brother,
yeah, what
he
did
was
he
like
play?
Pulling teeth. We tried to get him to play piano for so long, and it's just not his thing. He's really into bass now.
Oh, okay.
Like, really excited about it. I just changed his strings for him for the first time.
That's awesome.
So that's cute. But I picked guitar. I don't know why I picked a guitar. I think I was 3 when I picked it. I don't know what happened. But our youth intern at the time was like raised in our youth program, because that's where my parents met, actually. And we had a college intern, and he was this really intense guy, and he was going to teach me how to play guitar when I was 6 years old.
6 is crazy young. It's like Charity is 6 right now. So I'm just imagining that happening. Like guitar, because piano is one thing because you can push the keys down, but like to get someone to play a chord, that's difficult. Like,
Yeah.
so kudos to that guy for.
He was so ridiculous. He made me sign a contract saying I would practice. I was 6 years old. I don't know what legality is. What?
Man.
Like,
That's funny.
but my parents got me a Ibanez electric guitar when I was 7 or 8 or something, because it would be a lot easier for me to push the strings down. Because usually the action is nowhere near as high as an acoustic. And I played that for a very long time. And we had this guy, I don't remember how we knew this guy, but my guitar teacher until I was like 11 or so came to our house all the time and just taught me how to play. And I was a little kid and I didn't practice, but
Like, what were you learning? Like church songs or like
No.
pop songs? Or
this guy, I remember thinking this was a superpower. I did not know you could go to school for this. I realized he went to the same school as me, and I ended up taking like ear training. But I thought it was a superpower because he could just listen to anything I played him. Like, I want to learn how to play this, and just play it back to me.
Wow.
Which, I mean, it is still kind of a superpower
Yeah,
to be
no,
able to
that's-
do it that well.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I was like playing him Reliant K, like. I'm then 10 years old, I'm going to learn a punk song.
So I definitely think like being a musician is one thing, but then obviously like you're a singer too, is like songwriter. So like, were you always singing too back then, or like did
No.
playing come? You played first, and then at some point started singing.
I remember being very embarrassed singing in the backseat of our minivan when I was like 10 or something. And my parents were like, if you're going to sing, actually sing loud. Don't do that whisper singing thing that you do. And I was like, oh, okay. Around, I guess, 11 or so, my guitar teacher got a real job. Good for him. And I was kind of on my own, and I figured out like, oh, I could just type anything in on the internet and learn how to play it, because I know these chords now because I've been playing them for a couple of years. So I just like, I don't remember what song. I typed in a song into like YouTube or Google or something, and I was like looking for the chords, and I tried to sing it and play it at the same time. And actually, I found it very easy to just incorporate those two things together, which I don't think is normal, but it just it was very instinctual.
Yeah.
And my voice was like okay for an 11-year-old, and my mom has said like she was actually kind of surprised because I didn't really sing at all before then. I mean, I sort of did, but not really. And
When did you
it
write your
just
first
happened.
song? Do you remember what it was called?
I do. I still play it
This
sometimes.
is one of my favorite questions. 'Cause, like,
My first song was on the ukulele, which I got when I was in 8th grade. And
is that easier to learn than guitar? I've thought about getting one for the kids, but
it's definitely great for people with smaller hands, for sure. And some of the chords are only like one finger. So like you just put one finger down. So they are pretty easy. I think it was like even 10 times easier than that for me, because the guy who sold it to me was like, oh, you know, a ukulele is just tuned like the bottom 4 strings of a guitar, just transposed up. And I was like, oh. Okay. So I immediately started playing like Metallica on the ukulele.
yeah, that makes sense.
Like, what do I know that's on those strings? Okay, I'll just like do that. It was really easy to figure out after that.
So you started writing songs. That was like your first one.
My first song was called Insanely in Love, and it was actually, I'm kind of proud of it because it was a weird chord progression for a 14-year-old to come up with, so that was nice.
Yeah.
And it's not bad, it's really cute. Not necessarily the quality that I write today.
Take us into how you think about music, like in regards to the songs that you're writing now. What sparks an idea for a song for you? Like, I mean, you said you just wrote a song yesterday, right?
Yeah, like
something.
earlier this week.
It's a regular thing. It's a regular practice. It's something you're doing. But how do these song ideas, come out of you?
I spend a lot of time thinking. A lot.
Are you naturally are you an introvert, you would say, or an extrovert?
Well, there's the thing. My next album is called Animated Introvert. I'm somewhere in between, I think.
Okay. Cool.
Actually very much enjoy being around other people. I'm just a tired extrovert, I think.
That's funny.
Honestly. Introverted or extroverted isn't necessarily how much you talk or anything. It's really just like, where do you get your energy from? I get a lot of energy from being around people, but also I don't always talk. Sometimes I like to just like sit back and observe or listen or do whatever. Pretty good listener, I think, when it comes to, having conversations with people, and I'm thinking all the time. So sometimes when I'm just thinking about stuff, my brain comes up with a sentence or something, and I'm like, that'd make a really good song lyric. So I write it down in my like notes section of my phone.
No melody at that point. No
Not
chord.
really.
Really, it's just like whatever.
It depends, because every song I write has been different. Some of them, everything comes all at once, and I'm done in like 10 minutes. And then it's just like refining that.
Yeah.
And then some things, it starts with like just a sentence, and it doesn't have a melody, and I write a couple sentences after that, and it sits in my phone for like 6 months. And then I come up with a similar thing happens with like melodies and stuff. Or I'm playing and I just come across a couple chords that I think are really cool. And then I'm like, oh, what would fit really well with this is that thing I wrote 6 months ago. And sometimes it takes a very long time for that song to come together. But I just have to wait for all the pieces to.
Does that prevent you from thinking that any idea that you have is like a bad idea or whatever, because you never know how it might evolve?
Yeah, I definitely used to think like, oh, that's not very good or something. I never delete anything anymore. Unless it's been like 2 years and I think I'm really not going to use that. Or something I wrote down 2 years ago, my mindset has changed dramatically, and I don't really believe that thing anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. Then I'll get rid of it. But unless that happens, I keep it just in case. I kind of feel like all of my songs are just like, it's a very weird way to think about music, but it's just sound, and it's invisible. And in some ways, like, the music doesn't exist until I make it exist. But in some ways, I feel like it's always been in my brain, and I just have to wait for the right moment for it to come out.
You feel like that each song has a right timing for
Definitely.
Creating itself, essentially.
Yeah. And I have to be in the right mindset, thinking about the right things. Like, if I'm at a time in my life where I'm thinking a lot about, it's the same way if you're like, I'm feeling very sad, I'm going to write a sad song. Typically, a lot of my songs are like, what am I going through? What have I been going through for the past year? It's all about identity. So all of my songs right now are all about, like, who am I? What do I want? How do I get there? That kind of thing.
Do you ever write songs based on other people's stories, or is it just all right now just things that you're going through?
I've tried. I can't.
Really?
It's really hard for me to write from somebody else's perspective. I use a lot of, what do you call that? Like, the general, like, you. But most of the time I'm talking to myself. And I find it really hard to write more corporate things. Like, I'm a worship leader, but I can't write worship music. It drives me insane because I want to be able to do that so bad, because I have this need for good worship music that doesn't feel baby Christian. I can't write it. It's so difficult for me. Everything I write doesn't feel authentic enough or good enough, because I don't know, I think some part of me thinks that I can't speak for everybody
when it comes to, like, I guess those type of belief type things.
Yeah, and music in general, I'm just putting what I feel out there, and then hopefully it's relatable to somebody, but if it's not, then it was good for me.
Well, that brings up another question, is like, how do you know that what you're doing is good? I guess I also think about the songs that stand out to me and I keep listening to over and over again. There's a certain thing or mood or emotion that happens to me when I hear something that I think is amazing. Essentially, I know it's subjective, but good or worth.
I think that also kind of depends on the song because, it evokes different emotions depending on what it's about, but it usually gets stuck in my head. I've only ever really had that a couple of
That's
times where it
usually
got
a melody thing, right?
yeah, where it gets stuck in my head and I hate it. That's happened a couple of times, but sometimes it gets stuck in my head, and so I'm like really thinking about it a lot. And I'm like, if I'm not sick of it by now, it's good. And like, or if it's like the song I wrote on Monday this week, it was one of those where I like pieced it together. I had like a verse and a chorus or something a couple months ago, and then I was just playing around on a keyboard. I was like, I have this idea. I want to like make it super reverby and ethereal and have these different things and have this kind of theme. And then the rest of the lyrics just came out. And I was like, okay, well, I got to record this so I don't forget it. And I did that, and I was just like listening to it because I didn't want to stop listening to it. It's not to say it was like the most amazing song in the world, but it got me excited.
Yeah.
And that's I think what makes it good, because there are some things that I've written that I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna record that. Like, it's so, I have a very high standard. If I feel like it's mediocre, it's not going anywhere.
Well, that's important too, because you do have to have a standard for. We are, I think, consumed with so much music out there. It's so accessible. There's so much to listen to. Like, how do you stand out? And you have to have some sort of threshold where you're like, is this song good enough to see the light of day, I guess.
Sponsorship. Guys, I just want to take a second to stop and just tell you about 150 Music. 150 Music is a studio dedicated to songwriters, artists, rappers. If you're in the Houston area and you want to make the best music of your life, I'd love to help you achieve that. 150 Music has worked with such artists as Jeff Canada, AJ Santana, Brandon Williams, Santi, Omaha. We've done a lot of great work this year. Go to I don't know if anybody does the W anymore, but go to 150music.com and fill out the free quote request and tell me about your songs, tell me about your project, and I'd love to talk with you. If you use the discount code SNACKTIME, you get a 15% discount on our first song together. Now back to the interview with Emma.
Well, this show is called Snack Time, so when I asked you what your favorite snack of choice was, you said fruit, and I thought, oh, okay, well, Emma's she's trying to be healthy with it all.
Well,
and then you said goldfish. You gave me something.
my real favorite snack is ice cream, but you can't eat dairy before you sing.
Oh, good point.
It has too much acid.
Oh,
And
I
it
thought it
messes
was just the cold aspect of it.
No, if you eat or drink dairy or coffee or anything with too much acid in it, it makes you create mucus, which ends up sitting on your vocal cords and like.
See, this is helpful for my audience.
If I'm wrong, don't hate me for
Well,
that. I'm pretty sure
grapes.
I'm right. I heard that from a voice professor. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean grapes have some
I
acid
appreciate
in
the
them.
fact that this show is called Snack Time because pretty much for the rest of the day I get to snack on whatever the snack is of
Yeah.
choice. So it's pretty fun. A lot of because making music, it's a creative process. And so a lot of people find that there's a difference between, oh, I'm just going to put in the work and like schedule and like be consistent with writing as much as I can. Other people feel like I need to wait till I'm inspired to write something.
Yeah.
What is your philosophy on that? Like, or do you wait for inspiration to hit, or are you just constantly putting in the work?
I think I'd like to be one of those people that's like I'm writing songs every day and everything, but my brain just doesn't work that way. It just depends on the person, I think. I want to be a Paul McCartney and have like 500 songs, and then you can pick and choose from all of those because you are writing music every day this year. But I will sit there and like stare at the wall and be like, I can come up with nothing. It's so much easier to. I mean, and I'm a fairly busy person. I don't work that many days a week, but somehow my weeks are always full of things to do, and I'm all over the place. So it's a lot easier for me to be like going about my day, doing my thing, and if something happens, write it down in the moment. And then you can come back later and actually put in some work and be like, how could I make this into something? But I think the trick for me is like never let even the smallest inspiration go.
Yes, because you won't be able to remember.
No.
I have so many ideas where I'm like, how did that melody go, or how did that lyric go?
Yeah.
It's like, can't.
The like memo,
Yeah. Oh,
voice memo section of my
yes.
phone,
Oh,
full
Yeah,
of stuff. Yeah,
that's good.
even
Okay.
the bad stuff.
So let's talk about being an artist for a second. I told you already, this show is not about like the fact that we are already making millions of dollars because we're writing songs that are like that. But this show is about the journey of being an artist. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is how do you use social media to help you as an artist to promote awareness, attention? Like, what is your strategy there? What is your goal? How do you think about social media?
I actually didn't have any social media for my music until January when I started playing at this open mic in Clear Lake. And one of the guys there that I pretty much immediately became friends with, he was like, do you have a Facebook or something that I can follow? And I was like, you know what? I'm about to have music like actually on like Spotify and iTunes and stuff. I should probably have social media.
Yeah.
So I made a Facebook and I made an Instagram, and I make events when I have gigs or concerts or something, and I post pictures. I think pictures are the most important thing, and to have them done well. I had a friend from my church in Galveston take really gorgeous pictures of me on the beach in Galveston and on the Strand and stuff. Gosh, I love those pictures. They are so great, and I use those for Instagram posts and all sorts of stuff. One of them is on the inside cover of my actual physical copy of my CD. Just super important pictures. Those get people's attention. I don't know. Make announcements.
It's such a love-hate relationship, between knowing that we need to put things out socially because that's where people are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's oftentimes just like a garbage heap of like, getting lost and like wasting a bunch of time or not, it's hard to know the right way to use it sometimes, without feeling like, what's the return on, especially when our goal is like, your goal is to be an artist. Like you want to be known, you want people to listen to your records, come see it. I guess the biggest win, like I think about this now with the music industry changing, is that people would come see you live because, we can all stream anything we want for pennies, but really selling merchandise. And I really thought that was cool how you have those, and I'm waiting to get my sticker eventually, but, you have the stickers.
I'll bring you one next time.
Sweet. So you have a lot of cool merchandise.
Yeah, I designed it all myself.
Did you intentionally? You had to put work into that, right? Like.
Yeah. So I was paying attention when I was doing all those house concerts with Brandon. I mean, he's a decade older than me. He has a lot more experience than I do, and he was already thinking about like, what am I going to do to be known? And I was just kind of along for the ride, just like playing with him and stuff. But he made t-shirts. He had CDs. We did a couple different we did a really stupid like recording project in some guy's apartment, which was just weird. Hey. But I mean, it's all part of the process, totally. You got to do everything. And I still have his shirt. I still know a lot of people who have his shirts, even though he's not working on the same project anymore. It's just like, even if I'm not, I feel like I'm not super well known outside of Galveston and my community. But so I feel like when I'm making merchandise and stuff, I'm like, oh, this is something like somebody really professional who makes a lot of money does. Like, I don't feel like I should be doing this, partially because it costs a lot of money to get stuff made. Yeah. It costs less if you design it yourself. And I happen to be, I wanted to be a artist before I was a musician.
I really like the artwork and the stuff that you've done on the EP, especially.
Thanks.
I feel like it fits your vibe.
Yeah. All the pictures for the album art and stuff, other than the one of me, are things that I took in a place that's really important to me. The art on the shirts is like my handwriting, and it's like my sketch and stuff. And that's cool because I get to put a different side of me into this project as well. Not just the musician side.
Yeah, that's really cool.
The side I hate is the business side. God,
Well,
that's the worst.
I think a lot of people hate the business side. What does success for you look like? I mean, full-time artist, like what does it mean for you to, or maybe you feel like you're successful right now, like what does it mean to be successful?
Thankfully, I'm not somebody who is too materialistic. And I don't know, just the way I was raised, I was okay with like not having everything. I definitely don't want to be a really famous, like nationally well-known artist or anything. If that happens, okay, I'll go with it. Can't take it back after that. But I've just always kind of accepted like being a musician does not pay very well.
Yeah.
You can even be every kind of musician there is, I guess. Like you have stuff out on the internet, you can sell physical things, you can sell merchandise, you can have a different job that involves music, which I do all of those, and it still doesn't make like a ton of money. So I just kind of thought a lot about like, well, I can do something that I don't hate myself for doing, some other job, to make money, to live, and be able to do what I actually want to do. And that's okay. I'm not the kind of person that like, music is my life, but it's not like I can't do many things to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to think about it, because I think sometimes it's easy to feel like the misconception is that it's either zero or a nationally known artist at some level, where there are so many people that are finding success, you know, just so it doesn't take as many people, I think, as we all think it does to be successful as a musician, to have a tour, to be picked up by someone, to open for someone, to do a lot of things that successful people do, successful artists do. I don't think it takes a million people to make that happen. And I think in our minds, we think that is what it takes. You know, like for me, it doesn't take, 10,000 people knowing about the studio. It takes the right 50 people to know about my studio and to work with. And that would be an amazing life for me. You know what I mean? So like, I think it's about perspective, and if you find the wins in the small things, then that's success, at least the way I'm thinking about it.
Have you been to White Oak?
The music hall? Yeah. I love
Have
White
you been
Oak.
in the little room that they have upstairs?
I haven't. No, just the big
Okay.
room. The big room.
They have the big room downstairs, but they have a little room upstairs, which I think might be 3 of these little studios.
Size. Okay.
It's not big at all, but I saw a really great band there, and it was just like a super fun show, and I was dancing the whole time, and it wasn't full of people, but it was like a decent little crowd, and the band was great and communicated well with us, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
And I loved that show. And I was like, man, if I could play in this little room, I would be happy.
That's a goal right there.
Yeah.
Get in that room.
Get in the tiny room at White Oak.
We're going to reach out to them and see if we can make that happen. Here's the opposite of that question. So you talked about what it means for you to win or to have success. What's your biggest point of frustration?
I don't think it used to be this, but it definitely is now. In the last year, a little over a year, I've been writing music much faster than I have in the past. The last project took 2.5 years to write 6 songs. And I've actually written like 11 in a year.
Wow.
9, I think, are going to go on the next project. So I don't know. Because of that, my mindset has kind of changed from like, I do kind of need to be writing a song every couple of months. If I'm not doing that, I get frustrated. And I'm like, why can't I be creative? Why can't I make something? That is hard. Because again, it's not necessarily about like, I'm not making enough money or like, not enough people are coming to the show or something, because in the end, I'm just doing what I do and then hoping that other people will get something out of it rather than like I'm doing this for everybody else, which is kind of a Selfish way to be a musician, I think, because, originally musicians are servants. Like, they've always been servants.
Entertainment.
Yeah, their job is to entertain people. My mindset is more like, I'll take care of myself and make sure that I'm okay. And I sound okay, so you can enjoy this too.
Well, I guess you have to enjoy it too, you can't just.
I don't want to hate myself for it. So in that way, I'm always in my head thinking about like how creative am I being right now? And if I'm not creative, that's a sign that I'm like a little burnt out.
You get a lot of personal joy off of the fact that when you feel like you're being creative, whether that's writing a song, maybe performing, you feel creative and you're doing something like that.
It has to be a mixture of all of those things. If I do too much of one thing, I'll get burnt out. Definitely. If I get to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm not being creative, I'm in a weird funk, I have to stop all of those things. But then like, if I'm performing too much, then I put myself in the funk. If I'm worrying too much about writing, I put myself in the funk. So like, has to be a really good balance of everything.
That's cool. We just went to the 21 Pilots concert and freaking blown away by that experience. And that's the way I think about it now. It has to be about an experience for people that want to come see your music or hear your music. But we're not 21 Pilots. We are local coffee shop, mod coffee people.
I don't have a giant bridge that comes down from the ceiling and I get to walk across.
Right. But I still believe that at the simplest, smallest level, there's room for us to think creatively about what a live experience could be like. Have you thought through those things, like when you're, trying to get live gigs or whatever?
Yeah. I had a little show at the church I work at, in their like coffee room, kind of narthex area, for the release of my EP. And I purposely did not do it on the stage where the drums are, which are the drums that we use to record it. I did it in this other smaller room. I wanted it to feel more intimate, and I wanted it to be very purposefully different than what we recorded, because they can go and listen to that on Spotify or iTunes. It actually, I think, compels people to go and listen to your stuff because they're like, oh, it sounds like this when you hear it live. What does the other version sound like? Which is also why I wanted to record two different versions of a couple of the songs.
Well, and so when you play a song live, do you tweak the arrangement or kind of do it vocally a little bit different? Or like, do you perform it a little bit different?
Depends.
Yeah.
I usually don't tweak it too much.
But there's a certain energy that happens when you...
Yeah, and sometimes it's usually a lot more basic because it's either just me or I have like one or two musicians with me. Yeah. And even that is enough to make it, really different. Definitely. It's a different experience.
Let me end by asking a self-serving question. Because we did work on an EP together. What was think through that whole experience, and I guess what stood out to you about that process? Anything surprise you about that process? Or think about the finished record, where it started, everything in between. What stood out to you about that?
I liked it so much more than I thought I would.
Were you nervous about recording, like making a record like that? I mean, you had great musicians to be a part of it. Yeah. Which is cool.
It was cool. Anxious, but like in a good way. Like really excited about like how it was going to come together. Because some of those songs, I did not know how it was going to come together. I did not have any idea what we were going to do with it. Like, how are we going to turn this thing that I wrote into something that sounds really great? Because right now I'm like, it's really like not my favorite thing. And then like, oh my gosh, Summer. The song Summer, everybody loves.
Really?
I hate playing it live because it's just me, and I know what it sounds like when everything is there. But everybody wants me to play that song. Wow. That's the one.
It's crazy, right?
Pisses
like
me
the
off.
ones you don't think people will love the most seem to get the most reaction in some ways. Like I've heard that over and over again.
I really liked that process of putting everything together.
Yeah, it's almost like when you take each piece of the puzzle and you try to enhance or like be creative or like be intentional with what is the bass part going to do and how does that complement what the drums are doing, and then when you start putting Brian on the electric, and he's doing some ideas, and it's like it really starts to like take a shape that you didn't expect, and it's almost like I love the idea of being a solo artist, but really we all have teams of people that are helping us creatively put something together that in the end, hopefully it's the best version of that song. You know what I mean?
I think it's a lot like the way that I paint, actually.
I was wondering if you still paint or you still do
All the
art
time.
stuff. Oh, really?
Yeah. My room looks like a little art museum.
Cool.
I'm running out of space on my walls. If I'm painting a landscape, usually I start with the sky, just like the really basic color of the sky. If it's a gradient, whatever it is, paint that. And then you have to layer everything on top. You do the faraway stuff. You do the closer stuff. You do the details. So to me, like scratch tracks, that's the foundation. That's the sky. And then like you're building on top of that. Then like Nathan on the drums, that's like the background. That's like for a painting, that's the foundation really. And then you keep layering things, and then like Brian sprinkling in some cool electric guitar riffs. That's like the little details in the very front that you can see really clearly. It's a similar type of process.
Then you bring in the main characters, your voice, and then the layering. See, that's what I loved about your project was there was just many people I work with don't even know how to do their own harmonies and stuff like that. So it's kind of a struggle to feel like, because I feel like the harmonies and the textures and stuff are starting to nowadays like really interest me. Like, how do you add a lower octave to this, but in this one part of the chorus, and now it like feels like it's blooming a little bit more than just a single vocal or something. But your project, we had a lot of opportunities because obviously you can experiment with melodies and harmonies and stuff.
Let me just add 5 parts on top of this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that infinitely.
Yeah.
I really like that too. I like experimenting with harmonies because a lot of the music that I like by other people does a lot of weird stuff with harmonies. And it like has, like this part has some really cool dissonance in it or something. I was like, wow, how did they come up with that? Like, can I come up with something like that? So
that's cool.
That's fun for me.
Well, thank you for stopping by Songwriter Snack Time.
Yeah.
And if people want to find out more about you and bring you grapes at your shows, should they just go to your Facebook, or what's the best way to get in touch with what you're doing?
Facebook, Instagram, that's pretty much it.
You don't have a website yet, right?
I don't have a website. I was like,
you're thinking about it?
Trying to make one.
Really?
But that's
do you own EmmaBordelon.com? Is that available?
I don't.
No,
I should. It kind of falls into the business side of being a musician that I hate.
Good point.
So
okay.
Booking, I hate. Money, I hate. And I'm really bad at handling it. And I want to do all the artsy things. I can't do the let's build a website thing.
Well,
no.
Maybe someone will hear this and be like,
oh yeah, please build me a website.
There you go. All right, well, thanks again. Anything else you want to say before you?
I'm good. This is fun.
Yeah, cool.
I like grapes.
Molasses dreams, black and white memories. My life is just blurry. Focus the lens, breathe and count to 10. Shake the sleep from your hands. Get your feeling back again. Are you afraid of feeling numb? But you ain't the only one. I may be too far gone, but I'm tired of being asleep, and I wanna wake future's before me, and it drives me crazy. And it's so hard to see. Focus again, hold my shaking hand. Take another deep breath. We'll get our feeling back again. Are you afraid of feeling numb? But you ain't the only one. I may be too far gone, but I'm tired of being asleep. I don't wanna wake up. I wanna wake up. I wanna wake up. I wanna wake up. I wanna wake up. This feels like the end, but I know this ain't it. Shake the sleep from your hands and get back up again.
Great job.
Yeah.
That was great. That's a cool song.